All right, welcome to your deep dive. This time we're going deep with Mark Manson and his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Ah, Manson, love him or hate him.
Well, we're not here to judge. We've got some really interesting excerpts, though. Ready to see what not giving a feck can teach us?
Always up for a good mental challenge. Let's do it.
Okay, so Manson kicks things off with Charles Bukowski, the writer.
Oh, yeah, gritty, raw.
Exactly. And he faced tons of rejection early on, like magazines and publishers just not interested.
Bukowski's life was rough.
Yeah.
Alcoholism, dead-end job, the whole 9 yards.
But kept writing. Poured his heart into it.
Yeah.
Then boom, this small publisher takes a chance on him. People loved it. Bukowski becomes the successful author, defied all expectations.
Classic perseverance story, right?
Mm.
Never give up,
Yeah.
except there's this twist.
Oh, yeah, the epitaph. I was waiting for that.
Don't try. Can you believe that?
Seriously, don't try. From the guy who struggled for years and then made it big.
Yep. And that's Manson's point. Bukowski didn't succeed because he was trying so hard to fit in.
Interesting.
It was radical self-acceptance. He was just himself, flaws and all.
So what about us? Where do we feel that pressure to try hard, fit some mold, maybe one that doesn't even fit?
Right, like trying to be something we're not.
What if we embraced those imperfections instead? Let them fuel our passions.
Manson would say that's often how we find true success.
Now, on to the big idea,
Mhm.
not giving a feck.
Here we go.
But hold on. Before you picture yourself as some emotionless robot, it's not about not caring at all.
Thank goodness.
It's about being smart with your energy. Where do you focus? What truly matches what you value? The rest, let it go.
Has those funny examples, like stressing about having a better vacation than your coworkers. Who cares?
Right, or obsessing over, like, the perfect lawn ornaments. Seriously.
It makes you stop and think, what am I wasting my frux on?
It takes real self-awareness to figure that out.
Big time. Asking, does this actually matter in the grand scheme of things?
Now, things get kind of tricky. Manson talks about this thing he calls the feedback loop from hell.
Uh-oh, sounds scary.
Imagine getting anxious about being anxious, feeling guilty for feeling guilty.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like making things worse.
Exactly. You're feeling bad about feeling bad, and it traps you.
So how do we break free from that loop?
Manson has this exercise. Imagine saying to yourself, I feel like crap, but who gives a feck?
Interesting. Like acknowledging it without beating yourself up about it.
Exactly. Accept those feelings. Don't dwell on them. Let them pass.
Makes sense. You can't ignore emotions,
Yeah.
but you don't have to let them control you.
This leads into another idea. Happiness isn't some finish line. It's about solving problems you actually enjoy tackling.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And he brings in this character to help explain it. Disappointment Panda.
Disappointment.
Hmm.
Panda. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Picture this. A panda in a superhero suit delivering hard truths. No sugarcoating.
Sounds kind of brutal, but honest.
Right. It's that voice we all have, the one that tells us what we need to hear, even if we'd rather not.
I get it. It's about facing reality, even when it's tough. Kind of like when you stub your toe.
Ouch.
Yeah, it hurts. But it teaches you to pay attention. Pain can be a valuable teacher, right?
Right. So instead of avoiding pain constantly, maybe the question is, what problems do I actually enjoy solving?
And are those problems actually showing up in my life right now?
Love that. Am I in love with the process or just the outcome I'm imagining?
Yeah, that's deep. That's where self-awareness comes in. Knowing yourself, your values.
And to help with that, Manson uses this analogy of a self-awareness onion, peeling back those layers.
Okay, I'm picturing it. What are the layers?
First, you just recognize your emotions, anger, sadness, whatever it is.
Got it. Then what?
Then you ask, why am I feeling this way? That's the next layer.
Interesting. Getting to the root of it.
And finally, the core, your values, how you measure success, failure, that whole thing.
So it's about aligning those things, your values and how you judge yourself.
Exactly. Manson uses this example from his own life, his relationship with his brother.
Oh.
He felt like he was failing as a brother because they didn't talk all the time. But then he realized...
Maybe he was using the wrong yardstick.
Exactly. His
Yeah.
metric for a good relationship was just wrong.
It's so easy to get caught up in those metrics that don't actually matter.
So think about it. What metrics are you using? Are they really aligned with what you truly value?
It's a good question to ask ourselves. Otherwise, we set ourselves up for disappointment.
Now get ready for a topic a lot of people avoid: mediocrity.
Ooh, that word.
Manson says accepting where you are, even if it's mediocre, is essential for growth.
So it's not about being amazing right now.
Nope. It's about acknowledging where you are, with that judgment, and building from there.
Makes sense. If you think you're already amazing, why would you try to improve?
Exactly. He tells this incredible story about a Japanese soldier named Hiru Onoda.
What did he do?
Kept fighting World War II for 29 years after it ended, hiding in the jungle, refusing to believe it was over.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Yeah.
But also kind of sad.
Right. He was so stuck in his reality that he missed out on decades of life.
Shows how dangerous it can be to cling to beliefs that are no longer serving us.
And get this, the guy who finally convinced Onoda to come out of hiding, this adventurer named Norio Suzuki.
What was he doing in the jungle?
He was on a quest to find Onoda, a panda bear, and the abominable snowman.
Seriously. Talk about an interesting bucket list.
All right, so Manson's point is that true exceptionalism comes from dedication to improvement.
Not from thinking you're already there.
So where in your life are you resisting the idea of being mediocre?
That's a tough one.
It is. But what if embracing that mediocrity was the first step to becoming truly exceptional?
Okay, now that's a thought-provoking question.
It is, right. All right, let's shift gears a bit. Manson talks a lot about responsibility, but he's very clear about the difference between responsibility and fault.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the difference?
He uses the story of William James, the father of American psychology. James struggled early on health issues, academic setbacks, you name it.
Rough start.
But he eventually finds his calling and makes these huge contributions to psychology.
So classic overcoming adversity story.
Yeah, but Manson's point is that while James wasn't necessarily at fault for all those
He
challenges,
still took responsibility for his life.
Yeah.
His choices.
and that's what allowed him to create such a meaningful career. It wasn't about blame, it was about ownership.
Powerful distinction.
Manson even gets personal, sharing a story about a really tough breakup. At first, he blamed his ex for everything, but then he realized,
He'd have played a part in it too.
exactly, it wasn't just about her. He had made choices that contributed to the problems.
That takes a lot of self-awareness to admit.
It does. It's not about self-blame. It's about recognizing our own role in things, learning from it.
So where in your life might you be blaming others for your problems? What would it look like to own your part?
That's a tough question, but it's the key to actually changing things. Now, let's talk about the power of saying no.
As in setting boundaries.
Exactly. Manson talks about backpacking through 55 countries over 5 years, incredible adventures, right?
Sounds amazing.
But he realized constantly chasing new experiences can be a form of avoidance, like running from something deeper.
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
He had this particularly interesting experience in Russia. He was initially put off by how blunt people were.
Russians are known for their honesty, that's for sure.
No sugarcoating, right? But he eventually came to appreciate it. It was freeing.
I can see that. No games, just straight talk.
Exactly. It highlighted the value of authenticity. Sometimes saying no is more valuable than trying to please everyone.
So where are you saying yes when you really want to say no?
It's a question worth asking. Are you prioritizing your needs and values, or are you just trying to keep everyone happy?
Saying no can be tough, but it's essential for healthy relationships.
All right, let's dive into Manson's take on romantic love. He distinguishes between healthy and unhealthy love.
What's his take on it?
He uses Romeo and Juliet as an example. Our culture romanticizes those intense, dramatic relationships.
But those are often the most dysfunctional ones, right?
Exactly. True love isn't about grand gestures or drama. It's about trust, respect, healthy communication.
Those are the foundations.
He emphasizes the importance of boundaries. Like, he tells this funny story about asking his wife how she looks.
Isn't that a loaded question?
Totally. He says even if her outfit isn't working, he'll be honest because that builds trust.
I can see that. It's about being honest, even when it's tough.
So think about your own expectations for love. Are you seeking drama or something more genuine and sustainable?
It's a good question to ask. What kind of love are we actually seeking?
Exactly. Now, this might seem counterintuitive, but Manson argues that commitment, not endless options, leads to greater freedom.
Wait, how does that work?
He challenges the idea that more choices equals more happiness.
Okay, I'm listening.
Committing to something, a person, a job, a pursuit, can create more opportunities for growth. Think about it. When you're not constantly second-guessing yourself, you're free to really dig in and explore something deeply.
I get it. It's about focusing your energy, not scattering it everywhere.
Right. So do you feel that pressure to keep your options open? What would it look like to commit to something truly meaningful?
That's something we can all think about. Where are we holding ourselves back from fully committing?
And this brings us to perhaps the most powerful and challenging topic in the book, death.
Whoa, getting deep now.
Manson argues that confronting our own mortality can help us clarify what truly matters in life.
It puts things in perspective, right? It makes you realize what's really important.
Exactly. He tells his personal story about losing a close friend in a tragic accident. It was a wake-up call for him, a real confrontation with his own mortality.
I can imagine. Those moments can really shake you to your core.
It made him realize how precious life is and how important it is to live with intention. He also delves into the work of Ernest Becker, who explored this concept of death terror.
Death terror.
Yeah, it's that deep-seated anxiety we feel knowing that we're going to die someday.
That's a pretty universal fear, I'd say.
It is, and Becker argued that we create these immortality projects, ways to leave a lasting mark on the world.
So it's how we cope with that fear of death.
Exactly. It could be through our work, relationships, creative pursuits, or contributions to society. Basically, anything that makes us feel like we're leaving something meaningful behind.
It's our legacy, in a way, what we hope to be remembered for.
Right. And our immortality projects are essentially our values. They're what we deem worthy of our time and energy, the things that give our lives meaning and purpose.
It's a powerful way to think about it.
But here's the thing. Becker cautioned that these immortality projects can become a problem when we cling to them too tightly.
How so?
We can get so fixated on leaving a mark that we forget to appreciate the present moment.
We lose sight of the joy of simply being alive.
Exactly. So, what are your immortality projects? What do you hope to leave behind? But more importantly, are those aspirations driving you toward a more fulfilling life, or are they creating unnecessary stress and anxiety?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
Because in the end, our legacy isn't just about what we achieve or accumulate, but about the impact we have on the world and the people around us. It's about living a life that feels meaningful and authentic. And sometimes that means letting go of the need to control everything and embracing the beauty of imperfection. It really is a paradox. We think freedom means having all these choices, but committing to something meaningful can be incredibly liberating. And that brings us to another idea Manson explores, the difference between responsibility and fault.
Yeah, those two often get tangled up, don't they?
Totally. He uses the story of William James, considered the father of American psychology. James had a lot of setbacks early in life. Health issues, struggles in school, career disappointments, the whole thing.
So a pretty rough start.
But he eventually finds his calling and makes these huge contributions to psychology.
So classic overcoming adversity story.
Right. But Manson's point is that while James wasn't necessarily at fault for those challenges,
He still took responsibility for his life.
exactly, his choices. And that's what enabled him to create such a meaningful and impactful career.
It's not about blame, it's about ownership.
Ah, right. Manson even shares a personal story about a really painful breakup. At first, he blamed his ex for everything.
Happens to the best of us.
It does, but then he realized he had played a part in it too.
It takes a lot of self-awareness.
It does. It's not about self-blame, though. It's about recognizing our own role in things, learning from it.
It's so easy to point fingers.
It is. So think about it. Where in your life are you blaming others for your problems? What would it look like to own your part in those situations?
Tough but necessary question.
Right.
All right, let's move on to something a little lighter. The power of saying no.
You mean setting boundaries? Yes. Manson talks about this time when he was backpacking through 55 countries over 5 years.
Wow, 55 countries. That's incredible.
Amazing adventures, right. But he realized that constantly chasing new experiences can be a form of avoidance.
Interesting. Like running from something deeper.
Exactly. He was avoiding commitment, avoiding facing some of his own internal stuff.
Makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the new and shiny.
It is. He had this really interesting experience in Russia. Initially, he was kind of put off by how blunt people were.
Russians have that reputation, right? Brutally honest.
Yeah, like no sugarcoating. But eventually, he came to appreciate that directness.
I can see how that would be refreshing. No games, just straight talk.
It highlighted the value of authenticity in relationships. Sometimes saying no is more valuable than trying to please everyone.
It's about being true to yourself, even if it means ruffling some feathers.
It's tough, but it's essential for healthy relationships. So where are you saying yes when you really want to say no?
It's a question worth asking.
Ah,
Are you
well,
prioritizing your needs and values or just trying to keep everyone happy?
Exactly. All right, let's dive into Manson's perspective on romantic love. He makes this distinction between healthy and unhealthy love.
How does he define those?
He uses Romeo and Juliet as an example. You know, that classic tragic love story.
Oh, yeah. Intense, passionate, doomed from the start.
Our culture often romanticizes those kinds of relationships, the ones that are full of drama and intensity.
But in reality, those are often the most dysfunctional ones,
Right.
right?
Exactly. True love isn't about grand gestures or constant drama. It's about building a foundation of trust, respect, and healthy communication.
Those are the things that really matter in the long run.
He really emphasizes the importance of boundaries in relationships. He tells this funny story about asking his wife how she looks.
Ooh, that's a dangerous question.
I know, right? But he says even if her outfit isn't working, he'll be honest with her because that honesty builds trust.
Even if it stings a little bit at the moment.
Exactly. It's about being real with each other, even when it's tough.
So are you seeking drama in your relationships, or are you looking for something more genuine and sustainable?
It's a question we can all ask ourselves. What kind of love are we actually seeking? Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but Manson argues that commitment, not endless options, leads to greater freedom and fulfillment.
Wait, really? How does that work?
He challenges the idea that more choices automatically equal more happiness.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think about it this way. Committing to something, a person, a place, a job, a pursuit, can actually create more opportunities for growth and happiness.
Because you're not constantly second-guessing yourself and wondering what else is out there.
Exactly. You're free to fully invest your energy in something meaningful.
Makes sense. It's about focusing your energy, not scattering it everywhere.
So I'm curious, do you ever feel that pressure to keep your options open? What would it look like to commit to something truly meaningful and let go of that need to have one foot out the door?
That's something we can all reflect on. Where are we holding ourselves back from fully committing? And this brings us to perhaps the most powerful and perhaps most challenging topic in the book, death.
Whoa, okay. Getting deep now. It's heavy stuff, but it's important. Manson argues that confronting our own mortality can help us clarify what truly matters in life.
It puts things into perspective, right? It forces us to face what's really important.
Exactly. He tells this really personal story about losing a close friend in a tragic accident. It was a wake-up call for him, a real confrontation with his own mortality.
I can only imagine. Those moments can really shake you to your core.
They do. It made him realize just how precious life is and how important it is to live with intention, to make choices that truly align with our values. He also delves into the work of Ernest Becker, who explored this concept of death terror.
Death terror. What is that exactly?
It's that deep-seated anxiety we feel knowing that, well, we're not going to live forever. We're all going to die someday.
That's a pretty universal fear, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. And Becker argued that to cope with that fear, we create these immortality projects.
Immortality projects. What are those?
They're basically ways we try to leave a lasting mark on the world, to transcend our physical existence in a way.
So it's how we deal with the fear of our own finitude.
Exactly. It could be through our work, our relationships, creative pursuits, contributions to society, anything that makes us feel like we're leaving something meaningful behind.
It's our legacy, in a sense, what we hope to be remembered for.
Exactly. And in essence, our immortality projects are really just our values. They're what we deem worthy of our time and energy, the things that give our lives meaning and purpose.
It's a powerful way to think about values, not just abstract ideas, but the things we're willing to pour our lives into.
But here's the thing. Becker cautioned that these immortality projects can become a problem if we cling to them too tightly.
How so?
We can get so fixated on leaving a mark, on achieving some grand legacy, that we forget to appreciate the present moment. We lose sight of the simple joy of being alive right now.
It's about finding that balance, right? Honoring our values without letting them consume us.
So I'm curious, what are your immortality projects? What do you hope to leave behind? But even more importantly, are those aspirations leading you toward a more fulfilling life, or are they creating unnecessary stress and anxiety?
That's a deep question. It's not just about what we achieve, but about how we live our lives in the process.
Because ultimately, our legacy isn't just about what we accomplish or acquire, but about the impact we have on the world and the people around us. And sometimes that means letting go of the need to control everything and embracing the beauty of imperfection. Now, let's talk about another interesting concept that Manson explores. The idea that happiness isn't some destination we arrive at, but a process.
It's about the journey, not just the destination, right?
Exactly. He challenges the idea that happiness is something we achieve once we've reached a certain goal, like getting that promotion or buying that dream house.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, if I just get X, then I'll finally be happy.
It's a common trap. But Manson argues that happiness is something we experience in the moments when we're engaged in meaningful activities, connecting with others, pursuing our passions, and making progress toward our goals. It's about finding joy in the process, not just focusing on the end result.
So it's about savoring those small wins along the way and appreciating the journey itself.
It is. He also encourages us to practice gratitude, even when things are tough, to really focus on all the good things in our lives.
That can be a powerful practice, especially when you're feeling down.
It really can. It helps shift our focus away from what we lack and toward what we have to be thankful for. And that shift in perspective can have a huge impact on our overall well-being.
Yeah.
Now, all of this is fantastic in theory, but it doesn't mean much if we don't put it into practice.
Right. Action is key.
Absolutely. That's why Manson wraps up his book by emphasizing the importance of taking action. He reminds us that all the knowledge and self-awareness in the world won't make a difference if we don't actually do something with it. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
So what's the first step?
He encourages us to take that first step, even if it feels scary or uncertain. You don't have to have all the answers or a perfect plan.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's not about making drastic changes overnight. It's about those small, sustainable changes that we can stick with over time.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely. Real change takes time and effort, and there will be setbacks. But the important thing is to keep moving forward.
Don't get discouraged. Keep going, one step at a time.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something Manson calls the responsibility fault fallacy. It's this idea that we often confuse responsibility with fault, and this can lead to a lot of unnecessary guilt and self-blame.
Oh, I can see how that happens. It's easy to get caught up in that.
It is. So Manson explains that taking responsibility for our lives doesn't mean beating ourselves up for every bad thing that happens to us.
Right. It's not about blaming ourselves for things that are outside our control.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we always have choices in how we respond, even to events that we didn't cause.
It's about owning our agency.
Exactly. He uses the example of someone getting laid off from their job.
Oof, that's a tough one.
It is. And it's easy to feel like a victim in that situation. Why me?
Right, like it's all just happening to you.
But Manson says taking responsibility means acknowledging that we still have choices.
Even when it feels like the rug has been pulled out from under you.
Exactly. You can choose to wallow in self-pity, or you can choose to see it as an opportunity to explore new paths, learn new skills.
It's about reframing the situation, focusing on what you can control.
And it's important to remember that taking responsibility doesn't mean denying our feelings.
You're allowed to feel hurt, angry, frustrated, all of that.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging those feelings but not letting them paralyze you.
It's about choosing how you move forward.
And this concept of responsibility versus fault gets particularly tricky when it comes to relationships.
That's a whole other level.
Yeah, it is. It's so easy to blame our partners for our unhappiness.
If only they would change, then I would be happy.
Right. But taking responsibility in a relationship means acknowledging our own role in the dynamic. It means taking ownership of our own emotions, needs, and behaviors.
It's about recognizing that you can't control other people, only yourself.
Right. You can't control their actions, but you can control your responses. And this ties into the importance of setting healthy boundaries in relationships.
Boundaries are crucial.
They really are. It's about respecting each other's needs and space and not expecting one person to fulfill all your emotional needs.
And remembering that you're not responsible for your partner's happiness, just like they're not responsible for yours.
Now, let's talk about another key concept that Manson explores: values. He argues that having the right values is crucial for living a fulfilling life.
So what are the right values?
Well, he defines values as those beliefs that guide our actions. They help us decide what's truly important. It's not just about thinking something is important, it's about actually living in alignment with those values.
Our actions should reflect our values.
Exactly. And Manson challenges the idea that there's one set of good values that works for everyone. The right values for you are those that resonate with your core beliefs and align with the kind of life you want to create. It's about defining your own values, not just adopting the ones handed down by your family or society.
So how do you figure out what your values actually are?
He has some great questions for reflection. What do you want to stand for? What kind of person do you want to be? What impact do you want to have on the world?
Those are big questions.
They are, but they're worth asking. And once you've identified your values, he encourages you to look at your actions. Do they actually align with what you say you value?
It's a good check-in. Am I walking the walk or just talking the talk?
Right. And if there's a disconnect between what you say you value and how you actually live, it might be time to reevaluate your priorities. Now, living by your values isn't always easy.
No, sometimes it means making tough choices.
It does. It often means saying no to things that don't align with your values, even if it's uncomfortable. And it means standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular.
It's about choosing the path of integrity.
Exactly. It's ultimately more rewarding than chasing external markers of success or trying to please everyone. When you live in alignment with your values, you feel a sense of purpose, meaning, and authenticity.
It's about being true to yourself.
Now, let's talk about something that can be pretty uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Uncertainty. Our culture often demonizes uncertainty, portraying it as something to be feared and avoided.
Like it's a bad thing.
Right. But Manson reminds us that uncertainty is an inherent part of life. We can't control everything, and the unexpected will always happen.
That's just the nature of things.
It is. So instead of fearing uncertainty, Manson suggests that we learn to embrace it.
Embrace uncertainty.
He says it's an opportunity for growth and adventure. It's in those moments of uncertainty, when we don't know what's going to happen next, that we truly come alive.
Interesting perspective. It's about letting go of the need to control everything.
He encourages us to be curious about the unknown, rather than clinging to the familiar and predictable.
So it's about being open to new experiences and possibilities.
Exactly. And he even suggests that uncertainty can be a source of strength.
Strength, how so?
When we embrace uncertainty, we become more adaptable and resilient. We become better equipped to handle whatever life throws our way. He reminds us that some of the greatest breakthroughs, both personal and societal, have come from people who were willing to embrace uncertainty, to challenge the status quo.
They weren't afraid to venture into the unknown.
Exactly. So think about it. How can you view uncertainty not as a threat, but as a challenge, an invitation to step into the unknown and discover what you're truly capable of?
It's about shifting that perspective from fear to curiosity and possibility.
Now, let's explore one of the most empowering ideas in the book, the concept of choosing our struggles.
Choosing our struggles.
Manson points out that problems are inevitable. We're all going to face challenges in life. But we have the power to choose which problems we're willing to grapple with, which challenges we want to take on.
So it's not about avoiding problems altogether.
Right. It's easy to spend our lives trying to avoid discomfort and always seek the easiest path. But Manson suggests that this avoidance actually leads to more suffering in the long run.
It's like that saying, what you resist persists.
It is. When we avoid problems, we also miss out on the growth and learning that comes from overcoming challenges. We become stagnant, complacent, and ultimately less satisfied with our lives.
So how do we shift out of that avoidance mode?
He uses a great analogy. Exercise. If we never challenge our bodies, we'll never get stronger. Right?
Makes sense. You have to push yourself to build muscle.
And the same principle applies to our minds and our spirits.
Yeah.
If we never push ourselves beyond our comfort zones, we'll never reach our full potential.
We'll never know what we're truly capable of.
Exactly. So Manson encourages us to view problems not as obstacles, but as opportunities.
Opportunities for what?
Opportunities for growth, for learning, for becoming stronger and more resilient.
It's a shift in perspective.
It is. It's about choosing challenges that align with our values and our goals. And of course, some problems are just part of life. We can't control everything, and there will always be things that are difficult, painful, or unfair.
That's just part of being human.
It is. But instead of resisting those unavoidable challenges, we can choose to face them head on. We can use them as opportunities to learn and grow.
It's about developing a problem-solving mindset.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even though we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond.
And we can choose how we move forward.
Now, it's not about taking on every problem that comes our way. Manson encourages us to choose our struggles wisely, to be strategic.
How do we know which problems are worth struggling with?
He asks us to consider some important questions. What problems are aligned with your values? What challenges will help you grow and become a better person? What are the problems that are worth fighting for?
Those are great questions to guide us.
They are. It's about being intentional with our energy and not wasting our time on things that don't truly matter. Now, let's talk about happiness. Manson has an interesting take on it.
I'm all ears.
He challenges the idea that happiness is a destination. He sees it as a process, not a destination.
Interesting. So it's not about reaching some point in the future where we'll finally be happy.
Exactly. It's not about getting that perfect job, finding that perfect partner, or achieving some level of success that we've convinced ourselves will make us happy.
It's about finding joy in the journey itself.
It is. It's about finding those moments of happiness in the everyday, in the small things, in the process of working towards something meaningful.
So how do we cultivate that sense of happiness as a process?
He suggests a few things. First, engage in activities that you find meaningful.
Things that light you up.
Exactly. Spend time with people you love, pursue your passions, and work towards goals that are aligned with your values.
Sounds simple enough, but it's easy to get caught up in the daily grind and lose sight of those things.
It is. He also suggests practicing gratitude.
Ah, gratitude. That's a classic.
But it's so powerful. It helps us shift our focus away from what we lack and toward what we already have.
It's about appreciating the good in our lives.
Exactly. And that can have a profound effect on our overall well-being. Now, all of this amazing insight is great, but it doesn't mean much if we don't actually put it into practice, right?
Right, we have to walk the walk.
Manson emphasizes the importance of taking action. He reminds us that all the knowledge and self-awareness in the world won't make a difference if we don't actually do something with it.
Knowledge without action is useless.
Exactly. He encourages us to take that first step, even if it feels scary or uncertain.
And remember, you don't have to have all the answers or a perfect plan before you start.
The most important thing is to just start moving.
One step at a time.
And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
I love that analogy.
It's a great reminder that even small actions can lead to big changes over time. And it's not about making drastic changes overnight. It's about those small, sustainable changes that we can stick with over time.
Consistency is key.
It really is. Real change takes time and effort, and there will be setbacks along the way. But don't get discouraged.
I'm going.
Now, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people struggle with: saying no.
Oh yeah, boundaries can be tough.
They can be. Manson argues that learning to say no is crucial for building self-respect, maintaining healthy boundaries, and ultimately achieving our goals.
So it's not about being selfish.
Not at all. It's about honoring your own needs and limits.
It's about recognizing that you can't do everything and be everything to everyone.
Exactly. He talks about a time in his life when he was a total yes man. He'd agree to everything, even things that went against his values or priorities. But he learned the hard way that saying yes to everyone and everything meant saying no to himself and what truly mattered to him.
I can see how that would lead to burnout,
It does. It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle of busyness and people-pleasing.
especially in today's culture where we're constantly bombarded with messages about productivity and achievement.
It's exhausting, but overcommitting leads to burnout, resentment, and feeling overwhelmed. It's not sustainable.
So how do we start saying no more often?
He talks about the importance of setting boundaries in all areas of life, with friends, family, colleagues, and even ourselves.
It's about protecting our time and energy.
Exactly. We need to be protective of our resources so we can focus on what's truly important.
It's about making choices that align with our values and priorities.
Now, Manson also challenges this idea that we should always strive to be liked by everyone.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one to let go of.
It is. But trying to please everyone is a recipe for unhappiness and inauthenticity. It's about recognizing that it's okay to have different opinions, to disagree with others, and to not be liked by everyone.
It's about being true to yourself, even if it means rubbing some people the wrong way.
Exactly. True connection comes from being authentically ourselves. And sometimes that means saying no to requests or demands that don't align with our values. He even suggests that sometimes saying no can actually strengthen relationships.
Really? How so?
When you're honest about your limits and needs, it creates more genuine and respectful interactions. It shows that you value yourself, and it allows others to do the same.
It's about setting healthy boundaries, which is essential for any relationship.
Exactly. So think about those times when you say yes out of obligation or fear of disappointing others. Are you truly honoring yourself in those situations, or are you just depleting your energy and preventing yourself from focusing on what matters?
That's a good question to ask ourselves.
Now, let's dive into Manson's take on romantic relationships.
Okay, I'm curious to hear his thoughts on this one.
He emphasizes the importance of choosing partners who are good for us, not just people we find attractive or exciting.
So it's about more than just surface level attraction.
Exactly. He cautions against romanticizing those unhealthy relationship patterns we often see in movies and TV shows.
Right, the ones that are full of drama and intensity, but ultimately pretty dysfunctional.
Exactly. True love is about building a foundation of trust, respect, shared values, and healthy communication. It's about finding someone who compliments you, who brings out the best in you, and who challenges you to grow.
Someone who supports your growth, not hinders it.
Exactly. And it's important to be realistic about relationships. Even the healthiest relationships will have their ups and downs.
It's not about finding someone who completes you,
It's about finding someone who you can grow and evolve alongside.
someone who you can navigate the ups and downs of life with.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that you are responsible for your own happiness in a relationship. It's not your partner's job to make you happy.
That's a recipe for codependency.
It is. It's your responsibility to cultivate your own joy and fulfillment.
So it's about bringing your own happiness to the table, not expecting your partner to provide it for you.
And of course, healthy boundaries are crucial in romantic relationships, just like in any other relationship. It's about respecting each other's needs and space.
Giving each other room to breathe and be yourselves.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about success.
Okay, what's Manson's definition of success?
He challenges the traditional definition of success, the one that focuses on material wealth, status, and achievement.
The one that's often based on external validation and comparison to others.
Exactly. He argues that true success isn't about what you have or what you accomplish, but about who you are and how you live your life. It's about living in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
It's about aligning your actions with your values.
Exactly. It's about defining success on your own terms. What matters to you? What kind of impact do you want to make?
It's about creating a life that feels truly fulfilling, not just chasing external markers of success that might not even be important to you.
And it's also about finding joy in the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
It's about embracing the ups and downs of life and finding meaning and purpose in the process of growth and evolution.
Now, here's a concept that I think is really relevant today: victimhood chic.
Victimhood chic?
It's this idea that people are almost encouraged to portray themselves as victims, to constantly complain about their problems and blame others. It's become trendy in a way.
It's become a way to garner attention and sympathy.
It has. And while it's important to acknowledge injustice and speak out against it, constantly focusing on victimhood creates a culture of blame and resentment.
It prevents us from taking responsibility for our own lives and working towards solutions.
Right.
It keeps us stuck.
Exactly. It's easier to point fingers than to look in the mirror and ask, okay, what role did I play in this?
It takes courage.
It does. But taking responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable, is what gives us the power to change things. Now, let's talk about a practical framework that Manson offers for changing our values and shifting our perspective.
Okay, I'm all about practical tools. Tell me more.
He acknowledges that changing deeply ingrained beliefs isn't easy.
It takes time and effort.
It does. But he outlines a few key steps we can take. And he's also honest about the challenges we might encounter along the way.
Such as?
He says we might feel uncertain, or even like a failure at times.
It's part of the process.
It is. We might even face rejection from others when we start challenging their beliefs or making changes in our own lives. But he emphasizes that these are all natural parts of growth.
Growing pains. It's uncomfortable, but it's how we evolve.
Exactly. Now, one of the most powerful suggestions he offers is to question our assumptions.
To challenge the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. He encourages us to consider alternative perspectives, to ask ourselves, what if I'm wrong?
That's a humbling question.
It is. But it's so powerful. It helps us break free from limiting beliefs and open up to new possibilities.
It's about cultivating humility.
He shares a story about a friend whose brother was constantly criticizing her wedding plans. The brother kept saying he was just trying to be helpful, but it was obvious he was projecting his own insecurities and anxieties onto the situation.
We all do that to some extent, right? Project our own stuff onto others.
We do. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But Manson encourages us to entertain the possibility that we might be wrong, that our judgments might be based on incomplete information or biased interpretations.
It's about being open to other perspectives.
He also shares a story about his own experience of hitting rock bottom in his early 20s.
What happened?
He dropped out of college, was struggling financially, and felt like a complete failure.
Been there.
But looking back, he realized that rock bottom experience gave him a unique perspective.
Because he had nothing left to lose.
Exactly. He had nothing to lose, so he was more willing to take risks, to pursue his passions without the fear of failure holding him back.
That's when the magic can happen. When you let go of the fear.
He adopted a new metric for success: the metric of doing something. taking action, pursuing his goals, regardless of the outcome. It's about focusing on the effort, not just the results.
And that shift in perspective allowed him to build a successful career and a fulfilling life.
It's a reminder that sometimes our biggest failures can be our greatest teachers.
It's true. Sometimes those rock-bottom moments force us to reevaluate everything and make some much-needed changes. It's like hitting the reset button.
And it can be scary, but it can also be incredibly liberating. It frees us up to experiment, to try new things, to step outside our comfort zones. He also emphasizes the importance of embracing failure as an essential part of growth.
Failure is a tough pill to swallow, though.
It is, but he encourages us to shift our focus from outcomes to the process.
To find joy in the journey itself.
Exactly, even when it's messy, unpredictable. You know, it's interesting how this ties back to those VCR questions we talked about earlier. The ones that seem so complex to us, but have simple answers to those on the outside.
Oh yeah, I remember those. What was his take on them again?
Manson believes those questions often stem from our fear of pain, of discomfort.
It's easier to stay stuck in the problem than to face the potential pain of taking action.
Exactly. And that's where the do something principle comes in. It's about taking that first step, even when you don't feel ready, motivated, or confident. He argues that action isn't just the result of motivation, it can actually create motivation.
So we don't have to wait for the motivation to strike. We can actually generate it by taking action.
Exactly. He tells this story about starting his online business. He quit his job and had no clue what he was doing, but he just started taking action, learning as he went. He forced himself to just do something, even when he felt terrified.
And it worked.
It did. It's a great example of how taking action, even imperfect action, can be the catalyst for creating the motivation and momentum we need to keep going. So what are the VCR questions you're grappling with right now? What are those things you're avoiding because of fear or discomfort?
What would it look like to just do something, even if you don't feel ready?
It's about getting out of your head and into action.
Action is the antidote to fear and overthinking. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about Manson's thoughts on success.
This is a good one.
He has a unique take on it, that's for sure.
He challenges that traditional definition of success, the one that's all about material wealth, status, achievements, the one that's often based on external validation and comparison to others.
The one that society often pushes on us.
Exactly. He says true success isn't about what you have or what you accomplish, but about who you are and how you live your life. It's about aligning your actions with your values and creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
So it's about defining success on your own terms, not by someone else's standards.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, what matters to me? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world? And then it's about living in a way that reflects those values. And it's not just about the end goal, it's also about finding joy in the journey.
It's about savoring those small wins along the way.
Exactly. And embracing the ups and downs of life, because that's what makes it interesting, right?
It makes it real.
It does. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the subtle art of not giving a feck, we hope you found some valuable insights into living a more intentional and fulfilling life.
It's a book that really makes you think.
It does. It challenges us to question our assumptions, to take responsibility for our choices, and to focus on what truly matters.
To choose our struggles wisely, to embrace uncertainty, and to find joy in the process, not just the destination.
And most importantly, to remember that not giving a feck is really about being selective with your fecks. Choose your battles wisely, folks, and direct your energy towards those things that truly light you up.
Because life is too short to waste your energy on things that don't matter.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope these insights inspire you to create a life that's meaningful, fulfilling, and authentically yours.